Hey guys, what's up and welcome to my channel. My name's Chris. Today we're going to test out the Ridgid Sub-Compact Impact Driver. This is the 3/8 inch model. This is claimed to do 225 foot-pounds. We're going to see how this performs, as well as we're going to check out the Kobalt 3/8 inch drive impact. This is claimed to do 150 foot-pounds of torque. And then we got the Milwaukee M12 Fuel. This is stated to do 250 pounds of nut-busting torque. We're going to see how all these impact drivers perform. We're going to test them out first in a real-world situation using lug nuts on your car at 100 foot-pounds. Then we're going to bump up to the fasteners here, where we're going to do one without any lubrication on the threads. And then we're going to go ahead and put some Ultra Slick on the fastener and see if it's easier or harder to remove. We're going to again test out that Milwaukee M12, the Ridgid Sub-Compact 3/8 inch impact, and the Kobalt brushless 3/8 impact. So let's get to testing these impact wrenches and see just how much tightening torque they have, as well as nut busting torque. We'll go ahead and torque these down to 100 foot-pounds. There you can see 103.3. $108.5. And 100.9. Now here you can see we have all full battery bars, and for mode we're set on mode 3. Now we'll go ahead and tighten these up for the Milwaukee. Here you can see that first one's dialed in at 103.5 foot-pounds. That one's actually 121.2. And that one's dialed in at 101.3. Now you can see here we have the Milwaukee Fuel with 4 full battery bars, and we're also on speed 3. So let's go ahead and see how the Milwaukee performs. So now both the Milwaukee FUEL M12 and the Ridgid Sub-Compact 3/8 impact wrenches performed very well at 100 foot-pounds, taking lug nuts off on your car. Now the Kobalt will be done in a separate video. It's linked up above in the cards, as well as down below in the description. Now let's head on inside to a controlled environment and see how these impact wrenches perform. So now we're first going to start with seeing how much torque these things can put out. Now we have the Ridgid Sub-Compact 3/8 inch impact. We have 4 full battery bars, and we are on speed 3, which is the highest speed. Now we are going to go from 3/8 to 1/2 inch, so there is a little bit of torque loss. So we are going to do that consistently through all the devices here. So if we weren't using such a large fastener, we just rip the stud off or strip out the threads. But this is how you're going to get the best reading when it comes to putting out torque. So we ran that one down, and then we'll do the second one. So we ran that one just a little bit longer. That way we can see the most amount of torque that these things will put out. We'll go ahead and use our adapter here, because you're going to actually be surprised these things do lay out a lot of torque. Now that first one came in at 215.4 foot-pounds. That's a lot of torque. Go ahead and torque the second one off. Oh, that's even more at 247.7 foot-pounds. So up next we have the Milwaukee FUEL M12 Stubby brushless impact driver. Same configuration. We have 4 full battery bars, as well as we are in speed 3. So let's go ahead and torque these down and see how much torque output the Milwaukee Fuel has. All right, so we let the Milwaukee sit there for a little while. Let's go ahead and see just how much torque output the Milwaukee M12 Fuel has. Oh, that is a lot more. All right, so the first one was 229.4 foot-pounds. So the Milwaukee's still throwing out a lot of torque. And the last one, if I didn't see it, I wouldn't believe it. 321.8 foot-pounds. So here we have the Kobalt brushless. You can see that we have 4 full battery bars, and we're also on speed 3. This is a 24-volt system, so it's the largest out of all of them, as well as it has the biggest physical size. So we'll see. This is only rated at 150 foot-pounds. We'll see how this thing performs. All right, so we gave it an ample amount of time to lay down some torque. Let's see just how much force the Kobalt was able to throw down. All right, so the first one came off at 215.4 foot-pounds, as well as the last one at 264.9 foot-pounds. So our first one is set at 257.7 foot-pounds. And our second one is 265.8 foot-pounds. We'll go ahead and see how the Ridgid Sub-Compact performs and see if it's able to remove these fasteners. So after a long amount of time, you can see that the Ridgid Sub-Compact was able to take off 250 foot-pounds. We're not even going to go ahead and test it on the 265. And you can see after all that work, we did use up one of the battery bars on that Ridgid. So there you can see we're dialed into 256 foot-pounds. Now remember, the other one is dialed in at 265. You can see that we have 4 full battery bars, and we're on the highest speed 3 setting. Let's go ahead and see how the Milwaukee with the 2 amp hour battery performs. So you can see the Milwaukee was able to do the same thing and remove that fastener at 255 foot-pounds if you let it sit long enough. We're not even going to try that 265. There you can see we're dialed in at 252.2 foot-pounds. We'll go ahead and see how the Kobalt performs and see if it's able to remove 252.2 foot-pounds. Now remember, this thing is only rated at 150. So let's see how the Kobalt performs. So you can see that the Kobalt was able to remove 252 foot-pounds just like the other ones were. We'll go ahead and see if one of these, if any of them is going to do it, it's going to be the Kobalt. My guesses are it's not going to be able to do it, but let's see how the Kobalt performs. So the Kobalt was also able to do 265 foot-pounds. That's pretty darn impressive. So in all actuality, a lot of the ratings on these tools are much understated. And if you're having to use these like that for multiple durations of seconds, you're putting down a lot of force that you may not be aware of. So now all of these were done on 100% dry threads. We're going to go ahead and put a little lubricant on them. This is the Permatex Ultra Slick, part number 81950, and see if any of our outcomes change when it comes to working with breakaway torque on your fasteners. We're at 254.4 foot-pounds. Now this again is on a fastener that has lubricant on the threads. We'll go ahead and first test out the Milwaukee and see if when there is lubrication on the threads, if it becomes easier or more difficult. So you can see that is substantially easier to take off when there's an actual lubricant on the threads. So the M12 Fuel had no problems taking that off with lubrication at 250 foot-pounds. Now, we're going to go ahead and torque this down and see how it performs. All right, so we ran that down on the lubricated threads. So now we'll go ahead and remove this and see just how much torque output there is on lubricated threads. Now you can see there's a substantial difference of 149.6 foot-pounds on lubricated threads. Again, we'll tighten this down to around 250 so foot-pounds. So we're dialed in at 254.9 foot-pounds. We have the Ridgid Speed 3, battery bars R3, and we'll see if this is any easier for the Ridgid. So you can see at 250 foot-pounds on lubricated threads, the Ridgid Sub-Compact Impact has no problems. So we'll go ahead and thread down some torque and see how this performs on lubricated threads. All right, so we were able to tighten that fastener up with the Ridgid on the lubricated threads. We'll go ahead and see just how much torque output. And you can see that 128.9 foot-pounds of torque output on lubricated threads when it came to testing out the Ridgid Sub-Compact 3/8" impact wrench. So we'll go ahead and tighten this last one up to 250 or so foot-pounds. So we're dialed right in at 255 foot-pounds. Now we'll go ahead and see how the Kobalt performs at 250 foot-pounds with lubricated threads. So there again you can see the Kobalt was able to take off 255 foot-pounds, and it's definitely a lot easier when you have lubricated threads. And all of these impact drivers performed pretty darn well. We'll go ahead and see how much torque this thing can put down on lubricated threads. So we ran that for about 5 seconds. So now we'll go ahead and see how much torque output we were able to perform with the Kobalt on lubricated threads. You can see that we were able to put out 153.4 foot-pounds on the Kobalt with lubricated threads. So guys, what are my final thoughts when it comes to looking at the Kobalt, the Ridgid, and the Milwaukee M12 Fuel? Well, I think the Kobalt is definitely the largest out of all of these, and it's also the most underrated at only 150 foot-pounds of torque, when you can see that all of these were able to do around 250 foot-pounds, both in the breakaway as well as tightening torque. So this one, if you can pick that up on sale, it is a very good deal. Otherwise, it might not be the tool for you. I really think a lot of this comes down to a personal preference if you're buying into a battery line and how the tool actually feels in your hand. I think this is one of the lightest tools, but the battery platform on this may be a drawback. That's where the lightness of the tool really balances it out compared to something like the M12. You can see that if you're using the newer style battery, it is absolutely flush to the front of the tool when you lay it down. Here you can see that the M12 is designed with the head tilted to help provide more access. They also do give you a battery platform where you can use the 4 amp hour or the 2 amp hour, and you're able to get into the tightest places and also have a lot of torque in a small package where the Milwaukee might be a large benefit. I do like the handle style grip on the Ridgid, where I can tell immediately when I picked up the M12 Fuel, I did like the pistol grip, but the actual grip itself was a little bit too large and feels a little chunky in my hands. But again, this does allow you to put down so much torque that it's pretty much something that is one of the smallest packages with the most amount of torque, and I really do like that feature. I like small tools with a large amount of torque. Now again, one of the drawbacks on this is that battery system. So while those tabs are really nice and tight when it's brand new, over time they loosen up and they potentially can break on you. So it's really your money, guys. Spend it how you want. It's that personal preference of how that tool feels in your hand, as well as ultimately, is it something you're going to use every day, and do other people around you have great experience with a tool? So that's where you really help in, and if you have any experience with these tools, something that provides great value to you, as well as the ability to get into all of these tight places that are in vehicles or any other repair that you're making, go ahead and comment down below so you can share your experience with other people. I really appreciate you all tuning in. If you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really helps support the channel, as well as hit that bell notification so you don't miss out on any future upcoming videos like the Icon Toolbox unboxing, or some of the other videos where we compared the other impact wrenches and some experiences that I thought were pretty fun. It'll be linked up above in the cards, as well as down below in the description. And as always, guys, work smarter, not harder, and we'll catch you in the next video. Just a friendly reminder, go ahead and hit that subscribe button.